This is so great that I found you. I'm going to just tell a couple of words about you, what I know about you, and then maybe you can add to that. Brian is a doula, my colleague, and you are also a lactation consultant, and you're also a radiology specialist, which to the people who are going to be watching this is what is exactly you have a medical degree, right?
So to tie it all together, I took that education of radiology, and of course I applied it to babies. About 16 years ago, I got into the baby world. That's when I'm like,
Okay.
I'm doing this all the way. I'm switching careers. I'm gonna open a prenatal imaging center here, doing prenatal ultrasound, and I'm going to start teaching classes. I'm going to start attending births. I'm going to get my lactation consulting license and do everything, all these different things, right? When I first moved to San Antonio from Los Angeles, California.
Oh, that's where you're from.
That's right. Yes.
California.
That's me. So from Los Angeles, California, I first moved here in 2005, and immediately hit the ground running, because before I moved here, I started building out my office and conceptualizing how I wanted to do things. Then after rolling that out, I started getting to meet so many pregnant people and starting to hear what they're talking about, and I kept hearing the same repetitive story over and over again. And then there were some of those people were using doulas, and doulas were just starting to get kind of more known, well, not more known, but there was like that rogue doula society or whatever, right? And so I started hearing people saying their doula made them feel bad, and I'm like, what? Yes. And I kept hearing stories that repeated like that. My doula made me feel bad. My lactation consultant, really was like really pushing me not to use a bottle, and I had it and I just needed a break, and it made me feel really bad as a woman. And, these are the stories that would really resonate with me. And I'm like, something's not going right in our community. Wow. So I'm like, let me go backwards and let me start with, the people who are getting ready to get into this. What is their education? What do they know? Do they know what it's like to give birth? Do they know what it's like to go through the trimesters? Do they know how to eat? Do they know what is best for their baby? Do they know what's best for their relationship? Because that's what's best for the baby a lot of times too. It's it's very important to kind of get that squared away. So I just started taking that, and I started developing my own class. So we had a store called Babies R Us. I guess I should back up here, which is a big baby store. So Babies R Us asked me to come and teach Daddy Boot Camp. And I'm reading this program. I'm like, this is so not cool. Nope, this isn't cool. I don't like this, because a lot of it was, mom's going to be like this, bros. We got to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm like, that doesn't sound positive and productive at all, I kind of started teaching my own class under the guise of I was teaching.
Were you already a father to your own kids by that time, or like what just inspired you to go there?
Having a baby.
Having your own baby.
Oh yeah, my story's funny. When we got pregnant with Eva, she's 16 now. There was nothing out there for dads. Every book that I was looking at, everything it's been the same thing up until I wrote my book, and that's what because I'm like, everything in the space is just making fun of mom, talking, oh, bro, the diaper exploded. I'm like, okay, yeah, diapers are going to explode. What about, how do I, tend to my child? How do I tend to my relationship? How do I, be a good father? How do I, present myself? Whatever, it needed to be more practical. How do I understand birth? How do I understand what she's going through in pregnancy? How do I understand what postpartum's going to be like, the 4th trimester, right? When you get home and you got the late sleepless nights, baby's not latching properly, everybody's tired, people are getting grumpy with each other. How do we manage and navigate that? Those seem to be more important to me. And so I developed a course called Rocking Dads. Long story short, I have Rocking Dads online. People can purchase it online and watch it. It's about 3 hours of segments. You watch about 5-minute chunks at a time, so you can get through the modules at your own pace, self-paced. So did that, and then the local hospital system, the main hospital system, Methodist here, said, you need to come over to us and teach that. And so I did that for a little bit, and I didn't want to be an employee of anybody, so I stopped. And then they said, you need to come back and you just collect the money because people want your course. It's a very popular course. So then they asked me, can you write one for moms? And I'm like, sure. How funny will that be? A guy teaching moms, right?
Yeah.
It's great. And
So
I was
you're
telling
talking about relationships. You're talking about a real family that is appearing after the birth of the baby. It's not ending with the birth, it's life starting, right?
oh, and then I wrote a grandparents class for the hospital too.
Oh, that is awesome.
Because I find so many people are so stressed about having their family there and the overbearingness. And as a lactation consultant, when I go to a house, I
Mm,
snoop. I always like gauge out what's going on in this house. Do I see
yeah.
bottles out? Is the house messy? Is there rambunctious animals? Is the lighting crazy? Are the TVs blaring? What's the space that the baby sleeps in look like? What's it look like after 7 p.m.? You know, and what I run into a lot is one of the biggest things that I see, our baby just keeps crying and then the baby doesn't seem full and then the baby won't even sleep or stop crying unless I'm holding the baby. Okay, what happens when you put the baby down during the day? Well, she sleeps with my mom during the day. My mom will hold her. So the grandparents are always holding the baby. So the baby's now like, I'm not sleeping without someone holding me because babies like what they like. In that routine,
Yeah.
once it's set, babies get very angry when you change their routine, and you know that you have kids, right? So you
Yeah.
have a child, a son, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, he's getting to 8.
So there we go, right? And so when you look at that,
Yeah, he
you have
did
to,
not sleep when I put him down. I taught
sometimes,
him to the football.
we had to, you have to kind of train your baby a little bit so that you can get sleep and rest. And when moms and dads
Right.
aren't
And when
resting,
you're
they
and
drop
when
you.
you're a first time parent, there's just too much to learn, right? At such a short period of time, right? And then parenting comes, and then you have a new baby on your hands, and this baby has a personality, and then you have a dynamic in your relationship and other circumstances in life. And yeah, and it's so important to have somebody just guide you through that,
For
give
sure.
you the knowledge.
For sure. So I teach the grandparents, I ask them, did you breastfeed? Did you not breastfeed? Because typically we have a lot of younger kids that are having babies, and so the grandparents are younger, so they were bottle feeders. And
Hmm.
and their children want to breastfeed, but they're getting slack from the family, just give the baby a bottle,
Yeah,
just do this,
don't
just do that.
torture anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, why put yourself through it? It's going to hurt your nipples. They're going to be falling off. All the stories people hear, the
Yeah,
fear-based stories. I hate fear-based stuff. I'm like, let's just talk
fear-based
about
stuff.
this is this situation. This can happen. This can happen. What's going to be our solution set? What are our tools? What tools do we have available? And if we don't have tools, how are we going to get some in the mix?
Yeah.
That's a lot of it's a lot of solution-based stuff for me. And so I did the grandparents class to kind of give grandparents the new perspective and let them understand why breastfeeding is so important, how physiological things happen when mom breastfeeds, because that always blows their mind. I love teaching breastfeeding. I teach breastfeeding as well. And I love teaching breastfeeding is really fun for me. I love the dad's class the most. No, I love them all. Never mind. I love them all the same.
Yeah.
It's just hard. I
Yeah.
can't really prioritize them. It's just that feeling when doing them is so incredible. I typically don't take patients past 28 weeks because I want to be able to work with them. I work with my clients a lot. So we
Hmm.
do a lot of work
As
in
a doula, you mean,
just as like encompassing for them.
in
But
general.
when I take them on as a doula, it's more full service of we're doing classes, we're getting together and chatting, and we're talking about honestly and openly about their relationship, their upbringing, their traumatic issues that they have, anxiety issues, all these things, and I'm giving them tools to work through these. Like maybe I have one mom do a gratitude journal in the morning. Just get up and write one thing of gratitude every day when she wakes up because she wakes up feeling anxiety and stress. And let's just start the day thinking about what she feels good about. If the couples aren't getting along really well or misreading each other, I may say, okay, dad, mom, I want you each to write down very short 5 simple things you would like your partner to do for you. Like maybe it's pull out the chair at dinner, or I would like when I get home, I would love it if you would just sit down with me for a little bit and not charge me to do things or tell me what I'm
Hmm.
doing or whatever, directing me. Maybe I get 20 minutes to just catch up with you, or maybe just get a hug or something. So they write different things that are important to them down, 5 things, and then I have them switch the paper and I go, no expectations, but don't be a jerk and not try something. But if something looks as simple as to you, try it. you know And then they start doing little things like that. So, yeah. So I wasn't a doula. I was just attending births and assisting labor. I knew a lot about, I knew a lot about birth and babies, and it was working. And then I started doing some training, and I started kind of picking my mentors like Stuart Fishbein, Dr. Stu, Robbie Davis Floyd. You know, Stu actually was in Texas and introduced me to Robbie, took me to her house so I could meet her, and she took me under her wing. And so just a lot of really cool people in birth that aren't like the mean people in birth were really accepting of me. A lot of the female doulas were not accepting of me 10 years ago. That's for sure. And there was a lot of crazy things that had happened. I mean, I let them, they're in the past now. They would go very far to try and discredit me. And luckily, my reputation stayed very strong among the people who it mattered with, like the physicians, the midwives, the people who are, you know, actually count.
Well, let's get into that, actually. So there are like two questions that arise from this for me.
Sure.
One is that, just to clarify, so are you a member of any professional doula organization?
No, I did the donut. I did donut training, and I did another training, and I just, you know, I'm not going to pay someone to certify me to do something I don't need to be certified in.
Yeah, so you just took the course, and then you started working at your own pace and at your own rules?
I didn't really like the course. When I took it, you know, it was quite a while ago. So there was this real thing that I thought was very, not very productive, of making a us versus them mentality in the doula training. Well, doctors are going to try and do this, but don't let them do this, and don't let them. And I'm like, you're pretty much telling people to do things that aren't really ethical. You know what I mean? It's to me, it just didn't seem to set. So it put a real fear-based, more of like a warrior spirit into the doula, where I don't think that's the spirit. The spirit should be a loving, calming, and supporting spirit, not I don't have to go in there and be a birth warrior. I have to teach mom and dad about things that can happen, but in a non-fear-based way, so they can make a decision about what their decision is going to be when it comes down to it, because it's not my decision. It's not my baby. I'm there to support, help, get that baby out, get them healthy, make sure everybody's good. I'm a very physical doula.
Physical doula,
Yes.
I get that.
So I look like a spider monkey sometimes, because I mean, I use the bed. I break the bed down into various positions, and I'll have mom do hands and knees. We'll be doing counter pressure, so I'm up on my bed and I'm over this way and keeping my mom's happy, you know. And I got dad doing the eye to eye with mom, because that seems to work best typically. Because I do train my clients to also do that. I teach them eye gazing, but positive reflection eye gazing. So I have them sit for 1 minute and just think positive things about their partner, the attributes they want to have their baby to have when they first met, how they love each other, and they're holding hands. And the first time when I do it, like, I'm getting chills right now. They're crying.
That's so sweet. I mean, I'm going to borrow that idea from you, if you don't mind, just to have them sit in front of each other and just have that practice of actually looking into the eyes of each other. And then I just realized that's one of the things that many people don't really do in an everyday life. I mean, I have couples practice positions at my courses, be intimate. I talk about even going into some sexual arousal in the labor room.
Institute.
What I highlight for couples who go into labor together is that just even practice hanging on your husband, or on your partner, because just during birth, you might find out that your height in relation to one another is just not working for this position, but you need to be hanging, and just practice these things just to not find yourselves unpleasantly surprised when you do need it, right? And so the same thing with the eye contact. It's not the time to all of a sudden start looking into each other's eyes during labor and birth, right? It has to be some skill.
You gotta practice it. It becomes a practice.
Yeah.
So I have them do it every day after that. I give them a worksheet. They have to do counter pressure stuff, rebozo stuff, positioning stuff, slow dancing. I have them slow dance, because that part you're saying like this, I love that, because I think especially when mom's really close, if she's not medicated, and she's getting closer to becoming complete, that's such a great position. I have them slow dance. So I'll have her put her head on his heart, and partner can smell mom's head, and there's a real kind of more primal thing going on there, because you're with your mate, you're having a baby.
Yeah, that's
That's
See,
my school
we
right there.
understand that. We
You
understand
speak my
that. But I mean,
language.
yeah.
You speak my language, and I love that because some people are like, seems like a lot of work to do. Da, da, da." I'm like, no, it's great because if I can help people start up, that's why my clients like right now, most of my client load are patients I've already had deliveries with, and I'm bringing a couple new ones in here and there, but I'm getting bombarded with all my old patients right now, and I love it. I think it's such an honor to be back
It's
with them for
continuity
third,
of
fourth,
care, isn't it?
sixth baby. With sixth baby about 2 weeks ago. Like it's just cool.
Yeah, you're just a member of the family already, aren't you?
I love it. Uncle Brian.
I am positive that whoever watches this, especially in this part of the world where I'm from, and I am speaking with you from the post-Soviet space,
Yes,
right?
Georgia.
Georgia, and I am from Russia originally. I co-founded the Russian Association of Doulas a couple
I
of
love
years
it.
ago, and now I'm trying to do something similar here.
The
Um,
Silk Road doulas.
yeah, yeah, we are. And
I love
I mean,
that.
I don't know how much of a understanding you have about how things are in the birth world in this area of the world,
I
but
want to
it's
talk about that.
pretty radically
I,
different.
I'm gonna give you what I think and what I've read, but I don't know if things have changed. So I feel that there are two very divided schools of birthing, and one is very small, and the other school is very big. Get down, get your epidural, sit down, shut up, and here's your baby, here's formula. Is that is it like that in some
Uh,
places?
some places and parts of what you listed may vary because, not every place is pro epidural, not every place is pro formula, but
Uh,
definitely there is a pretty big gap between women and the medical system. Women are, in general, coming into the birth facility and something is done to them, basically. They're not in a position to tell what they want, request something. They're frequently not in a position to even choose a midwife or choose a doctor or
yeah.
choose practically nothing, a position to have or not to have a permanent CTG strapped to them. As we speak about the post-Soviet world, what definitely is um, a feature of this system and of this mentality is something that I really wanted to talk to you about because you're a
Yeah.
male. And we
Let's hear
obviously
it.
have to address this, right?
Sure.
You are a male in the birth room and you're not a medical professional. And I'm sure like people who are going to be watching this with a post-Soviet mentality, no matter how open-minded they are, they're going to be shocked
Well,
because this is like, what the hell? Like, what is a guy going to be doing there? Because in Georgia, in Armenia, in many parts of Russia, still, in other countries and territories of this region, where a lot of people are Muslims, a lot of people are just living in this quite
yeah.
patriarchal state still of relationships.
Mhm.
Even the presence of the father of the child is very questionable up to this day.
Oh, wow.
Very few people still understand why am I going there as a man. The medical community, on all of its levels, still is like, why do we need dads? Like, well, okay, she wants a dad. Well, okay, we're going to allow the father to be in the room if it's, for example, a paid contract. That's also a feature of our systems. You can pay money for your birth, you can not pay money for your birth and have a free birth, and then you're much more limited in your rights and options if you go that route.
That's so sad. There's not
Yeah, it's a
that it's
whole
not the
other
same across the
story.
board with some sort of governmental help to subsidize that.
No. Yeah, so I mean, we have a federal law that kind of in Russia that guarantees the presence of a family member, but that's really a different story. There is a pretty big gap in what level of freedoms and support women may have. And it very much depends in my view, on even like how the society is taking the presence of the father in the birth room. So I guess my question to you would be, are you or have you been encountering in your practice these cultural aspects of how being a male was maybe an obstacle for some couples, for some families, or for the birth facility, and for the mothers? Like, how do they take that as well?
So typically in America, the fathers do attend, but a lot of them will be really hands off. In the past, they've been very hands off. There was a period before the 70s where dads weren't allowed in the room. That they weren't
Mm,
allowed. They'd stay in a waiting room where they'd smoke and have a whiskey, and they would, yeah, for real. I have a trailer that we talked about this in for the Rocking Dads program, actually, which is funny. And they'd see the baby on a little screen. They'd bring the baby, put the baby up to a camera. Dad would look at the screen. Oh, there's my baby. All right, cool. Here's our cigars. Let's do our thing. Birth kind of started changing. They used to roofie women basically. They would give them something to make them have amnesia, and they'd have their baby wake up. The nurse has got the baby's got a bottle. That's what the culture became for a while, and people started breaking out of that because breastfeeding started. People started wanting to breastfeed, and
that was in the
it
60s, right?
yes, and then also there was, I believe, a big thing normalized because it normalized more of the gender split. Really changed a little bit because I'll ask a lot of guys when I do my dad's class. I go, "How many of you gentlemen in here do laundry? How many of you guys go to the market? How many of you guys will cook dinner? Do you guys do dishes? Well, she does dishes better than I do, so she might do." There's always that little bit. I go, "How many of you guys ever picked up your dry cleaning?" I go, "Okay, your wife and you seem to be splitting a lot of these things, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, we both have to work and this and that because
Hmm.
our economy changed so differently that men and women both had to be in the workforce a lot of times. There,
Hmm.
of course, there's some families still that do it where mom stays home or
Hmm.
dad stays home. Even there's a lot of dads that stay home now here in the United States. There's a very
Mm.
big community of stay-at-home fathers. Where mom is the
By choice or by
yeah,
by the
by
fact of
choice.
losing the job?
No, by choice. Mom's the money, makes more money, and it makes more sense to have one of the parents with them, and they want to be a stay-at-home dad. And a lot of them do it, and it's actually, it works out fantastically. I don't see anything wrong with that if that's a choice people want to make. I don't see
Hmm.
anything wrong about mom staying home. What I do find is that when you have one parent that stays home and it deals with the kids, they have to make sure to keep their autonomy. That they still have a life, a little bit of their own life outside of taking care of their husband or their wife or their baby. You know what I mean? They also have a little bit of something else. It's very important to do for them to have that. So people started attending births together, but didn't know what to do. Guys were confused. They're standing in the corner of the room. They want to stay north because they don't want to see anything happen. My guys, by the time I'm done with them and we're in that room, they're helping pull the baby out in my rooms. They are helping. Yes, they're cutting the cord. They're watching. They're seeing their baby's head come out. They're seeing their baby's first face. That's a big difference from when I was born.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I was born in 1969. I'm 51 years old. And so I know I look great, right? No, I'm just kidding. No,
Yeah.
but really, I mean, that wasn't happening in my time, and now I have more guys like that. And I decided in my community it was time for me to do something about it really strong when I started getting the Rocking Dads out. And then the hospital started noticing it in the rooms. The nurses started noticing it. And then I'm attending births and they're going, "We have two of your dads down the hallway right now. Hey, we had another guy come in. He was so proud. He was wearing the Rocking Dad shirt, blah, 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 blah." It's just cool. That's awesome. But the whole thing that works even better is that now an experience that a lot of men haven't had or didn't have, they're having, and they're so much more connected to their wife. They're so much more connected to their baby. And it's not, you take care of the kid. I got to sleep. I got to work. Da, da, da. No, they work out schedules to help each other. They have agreements in place, and it's fantastic. But I think that knowledge has to be put out there. I should start honing in on Russia and having like someone translate for me, and I should start talking to men about birth and babies and family and how to
Can
do
I
it.
do that?
Man, if you want to facilitate something like that, I would love to because I talk
Yes,
all
I do.
day long.
How do people take you as a male and a doula and a male? I mean, like for us, still, a profession of a doula is so like witchcraft for just practically the majority of the post-Soviet space.
I don't even know how it would be considered witchcraft when all we do is go there and assist women in moving their bodies properly
Yeah,
and and
it's
having
very irrational when you know what you're talking about, but we run into obstacles all the freaking time, into legal obstacles, into mentality obstacles, into jealousy from the midwives who don't make just no money, pretty much. I mean, I'm not going to
midwives
even
don't make money.
Oh gosh, here in Georgia, there are no private midwives. The system in the post-Soviet world is very different
No
from
home births.
no home births. Midwives are not getting higher education, meaning like a degree that is comparable and compatible with like the doctor's degree in terms of how respected this profession is and how long they study for it and how much their scope of practice is. They're frequently not even entitled to measure the dilation, or if they are, but they're not entitled to make any decisions or guide the birth in a certain direction. They are just putting the CDG monitors on and off. They're staying with the woman. They're helping within the physiological range if they are in the capacity to do that, if they don't have other 29 births happening at the same time on the floor, if they're not super overloaded.
They're tired. They're tired.
Yeah.
They're not passionate. It's not heart work when it feels like that, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I love what I do. It's heart work. I love what I do.
Yeah, but they don't get paid, and so in Georgia, their salary is like something like $150 a month.
How do you survive on that? I don't know what it's like in Georgia, though.
But people own places here. It's not that, everybody rents and people live with families and they get by, but just for you to have an understanding of how respected the profession is. So it's just horrible, the situation in which the midwives are in. Pretty big problem because there is an load of doctors, like people with medical degrees who graduate and they don't work even, many of them, and nobody wants to be a midwife anymore. And so like the young midwives here are in their 50s and there's no replacement pretty much.
Wow.
And whoever studies to be a midwife, they don't get the experience. They're not interested. They're not motivated to do things differently. And so it's a snowball, this competition that frequently doulas get from midwives who are used to doing things differently. And here comes a woman with a doula. And obviously, if the woman is prepared for birth, she wants things to be done differently. She refers to her doula, and even though doulas stay within their scope of practice, they don't give advice, they don't make decisions for the women, but the doulas get to be blamed for everything that goes differently from how this facility and how these midwives are used to doing things. Do you know what I mean?
It can be like that sometimes, and what I noticed when I was first really starting to attend a lot of births is like when they go, oh, there's a doula type of thing, until they got.
So you had that.
Yes, because
feeling, right?
Because in the United States, there's a lot of doulas that would become doulas to save other women from their birth trauma, and that's a common thing in this business, and so they come in and there's conspiracy theory and there's this and there's all these things that happen, and it can, sometimes the wrong influence can cause dangerous things. I had someone who had a doula before me, and she chose me for her last baby. When we had her baby, she said, I'm not getting the Pitocin afterwards, am I? And I'm like, wait, that's typically what they do. If you don't want it, you need to talk to your doctor. Why would you not want it? She goes, well, I think I do want it because last time my doula told me I shouldn't have it. It's bad for me, but I did hemorrhage and I couldn't hold my baby and I had to have a transfusion. I'm like, no brainer. What do you think you should do? You know what I mean? Get the Pitocin because you obviously have a clotting thing. And I tell, and so I tell my patient, I go, if you want to be supernatural in a hospital and you want to not have the Pitocin, I highly suggest you do some sort of thrombolytic panel so you find out how you clot. and how your body works, so you don't end up with an issue, because
Yeah.
there's Mother Nature made it so birth is supposed to be. People don't make it in birth sometimes. That's
Yeah.
how it should be. But we have a lot more population now because we do have the OR around the corner, which is grossly misused in the United States. Don't get me wrong. There's a very high C-section rates, which
What's the
should be,
rate in your community?
in my community, I'd say easily 40 to 60%
Oh,
at most of the
what?
hospitals. Most of the hospitals,
Really?
40 to 60. There's so many, and not it's just there's just different cultures of different
I'm
hospital
shocked.
systems. There's one hospital system that's very high. There's also one that is one of the lowest in the United States. It's the military hospital. SAMC's 7%. I expect to see 12 to 15%, somewhere in that. That's acceptable to me of C-section rate
Yeah, well,
because
what
of the
the
population.
WHO is suggesting, right? 10 to 14%, something
Oh, is that
like
what they say? Yeah. So I don't even know.
that.
That's just my thought. 12 to 15.
Mm.
I'm thinking, but sure, 10 to 14. Who? I'm cool with who. Sounds good.
Yeah.
so, so,
Okay.
so for me, that's what I think.
Okay.
But
Why do
so,
you think that
so
is so high?
Well, just because it
The
is, because
percentage?
it's easier and there's a lot of influence. I mean, I've heard it so many times. Oh, don't you want to just get this baby out? Come on, mom, you look tired. We can have a baby right now. Let's go get this baby
So
out.
you're
Stop.
saying it's facilitated by the doctors
By
themselves,
the staff. There's a hospital.
by the
I
staff?
won't go to a certain hospital system here because they just frustrate me, because they still take the baby to a nursery, which is totally not necessary. Baby should be rooming in. They want to bathe the baby right away still, and I'm like, you're so antiquated in your way. Keep the baby,
Mhm.
unbathed for 6 to 8 hours at least, and then
Mhm.
let's get the baby's temperature good. Let's make sure we have that antibacterial,
Yeah, the
capability. Everything
vernix sucked
good. Yeah.
in.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got to, wipe the vernix in. Don't wipe it off. Don't throw it away. Push it in. That's there
Yeah.
for a reason. Everything's there for a reason. There's no mistake to physiology and how it works. So
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think there's this culture of them versus us, like I was telling you, and I think unfortunately some of the older training programs were doing that. And they were putting that and instilling that, and then you get a group of gals together with a couple of them who had birth trauma, and everybody's talking about it. And then you get, you're warriors now, and you're fighting a fight, which becomes more of a it really was not good for. It was detrimental for a lot of relationships between the medical community and the doula community. But now in San Antonio, the doulas community is doing better because they're being welcomed if they play nice. And you don't have to do. I do a lot of things in the hospital. I brimmed my patient the other day and got that baby to crown like that the other day because she was tired and it was time for she wanted to get that baby out, and she was trying to push, and she had chosen to have an epidural, so she was a little numb. So I brimmed her pelvis, and that baby's head was right there, and we delivered. You know what I mean? So they give me a lot of freedom to do that. But in a lot of places, do you think, if you have a bad relationship with the workers, and they're not going to be happy if you're doing things that are a little more aggressive and forward thinking, right?
Have this, like you said, I love this expression, fear-based experience when
Yeah.
when I personally come in, because I'm tired of being afraid of looking the wrong way, of moving in a wrong way, of having people look at me with hatred, or just with like this, who the hell is this,
Yeah.
And so there is one place where I'm totally free to do what I want because I have the support of the head doctor. He's very progressive and amazing and all of that.
I love that.
And then other places are, and even like the other floor of the same hospital where it is not the private area, it's like all post-Soviet, just nothing changes in it. And people go have the same exact experience. And I know if I go to that floor and start doing what I do as a doula, I would get so much of this BS that I don't have to be dealing with during the birth, explaining things to
Yeah.
these midwives who never saw a natural birth or like saw it like 15 years ago last time, who don't understand what privacy is because it's a cultural thing, who who don't like that something is being questioned. They
Right.
take it personally. And so, as a doula, how do you not become a birth savior? How do you not become somebody who fights for this
You want to
mother to
know
have an
how?
experience?
I'll tell you how.
Yeah,
I prep my
tell me.
patients. My patients go in prep. They have a clear understanding of the area they chose to have their birth in. I didn't choose for them to be in a certain hospital. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't choose for them to be there. But typically, I work at one hospital system, two of them here, not the one of them
Yeah.
I just won't go to. They have to switch doctors.
See,
And
yeah.
so,
So you chose the strategy that I have also,
yes. And so
right?
it's, yeah, well, basically, and
Because
so
you have to protect your own psyche as well, because you're going to burn out, right? If
exactly. But so what I do is, okay, I'm a big loudmouth. So I'm very known in my community. I'm a loudmouth. I'm a writer. I get published in the paper a lot. I write, different articles. I do, I'm published in a lot of things. I'm a big mouth. I got a lot to say. And I try and do it in a way that just provokes thought, not an argument, but makes you think a little bit, because ultimately it comes down to people making their own decisions. So I say, you chose your doctor. This is the culture of your doctor. You chose the hospital. This is the culture of the hospital. How are you going to get what you want in a non-combative way? And how can you express that to what you need, and help get these people to work for you, because you're paying them, they're not paying you. So how are we going to do that? And typically I started something really big here, and I started talking to a lot of doctors about it. Fortunately, doctors respect me a lot. I have a lot of OBs that are my close friends and that respect me in this community and refer to me constantly for ultrasounds, for classes, for doula services. There are some doctors that say the only doula I want is Brian, because
why do you
we
think
work.
that is? Because you're a male?
No, because I work really well together with them, and my patients are happy because they get what they want. My doctors don't have to be babysitting the patient, because the patients are usually higher maintenance when they're doing unmedicated. I'm there, I handle it. I know medicine. I know, because of my background in pathophysiology,
Mm-hmm.
biology, chemistry, physiology, anatomy. I know disease. I mean, I've been working in medicine since I was 17. I'm 51. It's a long time in the
Yeah.
medical community. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I know the lingo. I know how the machines work. I know what's going on. Like, they'll go, "Hey, Brian, can you turn off the blood pressure cuff?" Yeah, boom. Can you do this? They're so cool with me, because we cultivated a good relationship and trust, and they know that I'm in there to work and to make their jobs easier. My doula spirit has to be to doula the people working for us as well, and to be nurturing to them as well. So they
Yeah,
see
I
they
agree
see
with that.
they see that I facilitate a peaceful, joint, work together, and we work together so well. Always. I'm such good friends with all the nurses. I come into the hospital, I get hugs. The doctors are coming in hugging me. We
Yeah.
got males and females, and we just have, like, there's just a good vibe. But you have to set that precedence for yourself. Don't make it about a war. Make it about being the cooler. How are you going to go in there, and how are you going to change their perspective in a
Yeah.
very nice way? How do you become friends? How do you establish
Mhm.
trust? Are you going to bring them some food when you come in? I bring donuts all the time to my nurses, because they're
Oh,
working
that's
hard.
a cool idea.
I always
Bring
do. When I go,
food.
yes, I always bring food. Tacos or donuts. I am going to hook my nurses up and the people that are working that thing, because I know they're working hard. I know they're underappreciated a lot of times. I know they have pressure there's some doctors don't get along with some nurses, and I know there's these pressures of the day. So I got to go in there going, they've had a day probably, or something probably didn't go right. How can I make them feel more comfortable and more happy? And that's going to make my environment more happy, because it's the energy I put into it is the energy I'm going to get back. And
Yeah,
I know
I
that
love it.
it's
Yeah.
the law of thermodynamics, right? The second law of thermodynamics: put energy in a system, you're going to get energy out of it. What kind of energy are you going to put in it? That's what I always think about.
Yeah.
I want to talk about collaborative care model. So what I
Yeah.
did was a couple of years ago. I'm a lot less active right now, but I'm getting ready to start doing a bunch more, like, lives and this and that. My lives, I typically have 5 to 10,000 people on with me when I do a live broadcast on Facebook. It's fun. But that's the reason is not for the fun that I did. The reason is to educate my public. And one thing that I brought out to a lot of the doctors here who are my friends, I'm like, you guys, there's something changing, and I see you guys doing it. Even if I didn't see them doing it, I give them credit, so then it puts it in their head that they think they're doing it, so they start doing it. And I'm like, you guys are changing the scope of the collaborative care model. In medicine, a collaborative care model basically works between primary care physician, specialists, and psychologists or psychiatrists, right? Not now. We're factoring in the patient in part of the collaborative care with their doctor, where the patients are now having these discussions with their doctors, and their doctors are now learning how to facilitate that discussion and not be offended or not be bothered by it, but go, okay, well, part of having someone who wants things a different way is they are educated a little bit differently, and they do have a drive to do it. So how do we support them? Because I'm their professional, I can tell them what to do, or go get another doctor, or I can keep them and make them happy and learn something, and broaden my scope of practice, and broaden, my how diverse my new patient load will be, because people will talk about how I behave with my patients and the relationship you build with your patients. Same with anything, like a doula too. For me, I've got a great rapport with my patients. I have all 5-star reviews on Google, and for the birth guy, my other company has like a 4.8 rating everywhere pretty much, and we've been in business 16 years. That's a pretty high rating to keep for 16 years.
Yeah.
So but it's because it's about, involving people, making them feel comfortable, giving them knowledge so they can make decisions, and having them get their confidence up to talk to their care provider, which they should be able to do, and learning how to do it.
What if they're not?
What
What if I mean, I understand we're talking from quite different perspectives here. We're on different, by we, I mean the medical systems that we operate in,
Yeah.
On different levels of development, I would say, because I was pregnant and labored my son in California on a free insurance. I didn't pay a cent
Yeah,
for
Medicaid.
the care that
Medicare.
for the care that I got, and
And it was good care. Was it good care?
completely, it was marvelous.
You-
I just got Medicaid just because
Yeah.
I came to a facility and I said, I'm pregnant, I'm a student, what do I do? And they're like, honey, you're under good care now. All figured out, everything perfect. And I mean, this is something that is just cosmos for the majority of women where I come from. I trained to be a doula in Canada in a small town, and I started working in the local hospital. And even in this small town, like, things are set up in such a way that for the majority, again, of the post-Soviet women would be considered luxury, of like a queen level luxury,
Yeah.
And I'm not talking only about how the facility is, colored and painted, and what
You're
machines
talking
it
about who
has.
occupies it. Who are the people working in it?
Exactly. What is their level of education? How up to date are they with with like normal things? Still, care providers tell women that you can't keep the cord pulsating for more than 1 or 2 minutes, because the blood is gonna float back into the
Into the
placenta
baby.
from the baby. Or things like, oh, you had one C-section, so you're doomed to have all the other C-sections. You're not allowed to have a partner in because it's dangerous, or your husband is not supposed to be here because he's going to lose sexual interest in you.
Now
You don't have to be breastfeeding because, oh, your baby's hungry, you don't have milk, or your breast is just damaged or flawed. Give them formula.
That's what I'm saying. So I did nail it when I described what it was like. Probably over there, you said kind of, but you're saying almost exactly what I'm saying, verbatim. So Andrew, how did I even get on your radar, and why did you guys hire me?
So the doctor that my wife had researched and decided she wanted to talk to had mentioned the possibility of getting a doula, and she was very professional. Your name did come up. You were highly recommended by her, so we did our own research, and after talking to you, we knew it was going to be the best way to go.
And how did it turn out for you guys in the birth room?
Oh, phenomenal. We pushed for less than an hour for a 9-pound baby, our firstborn. So it was record-breaking almost.
Did you, as a male, ever had a kind of a doubt of having another male at your wife's birth?
No, I mean, because there's male OBs and male doctors, and to me that just they're medical professionals. Is what they do. There's no issue there for me.
Cool.
So they got it right from the horse's mouth. Funny enough, right? So people often ask that question. I'm like, last I checked, I'm the busiest doula in town, and I'm as busy as I want to be. I probably turn away about 10 people a month. I just refer someone else.
I love it. Just talking to you, it seems so normal and so natural to me. But I understand also that there is such a cultural thing about that in my world, and just in general, birth is considered to be such a not a male thing. You know, many women still believe, and medical professionals and women themselves, that, you know, it's just not a place for men to be. There's nothing to look at, and they're not supposed to be involved. It's a woman's deed, you know.
There's
No need
nothing,
to.
there is nothing like when a dad sees their baby's first face,
I
pulls
know.
the baby out, helps the doctor get the baby out and put baby skin to skin on mom, you know, and there's nothing like that. And the face that these men have is so different when they walk, once their baby comes out, they are different. It's a changed face, and their involvement changes that, because men are, you know, we're visual. You know, we like girls in, you know, cute, sexy outfits and this and that. You guys don't care if we're wearing a cute, sexy outfit. You ladies, you want, you know, affection and sweetness, and right. It's like we're just wired differently. And so
Yeah.
for men, they got to see it to believe it, and to be part of it brings them into it. So by the education I give guys and the stuff they learn, they go all the way into it, because they finally have power, and they have knowledge, and because knowledge is power, right? And they have that in this space, and now they understand things. My guys leave my class, and by the time they get home, they're talking about everything. And these guys, when they first come up to my class, they sit down. I cap it at 25 guys, and they all look like this. It's morning time, and it's Saturday, and they've got their food or their coffee, and they're like, I go, how many of you guys were sentenced to be here? And they're like, you know, it's like pissed, because my class is 3.5 hours. I go, well, I got you guys for the next 3.5 hours. And I'll be talking the whole time. So lucky you. As I tell them, and then oftentimes when they're really like tense, when I can feel the room's a little tense, I go, you guys, we got a lot to cover today. First of all, when a man loves a woman, here comes a baby. So you guys are here. You loved a woman. So let's work. You know, they're like, they think it's funny. And we break the
Yeah.
ice, and then we get started.
Yeah.
But by the time they leave, they understand what, you know, what the trimesters are. They understand how the woman's body works. They understand the physiology of oxytocin and prolactin, and they understand, you know, how everything, it kind of circulates and works. They understand how to do a birth plan. And my birth plan, I will not let them do major birth plans. My birth plan is going to be under 10 points or under, and they're going to be calm, concise bullet points. And I section it into 3 sections, because nobody cares if you want the lights dim. Nobody cares if you want to have a diffuser in the room. Leave that off. These people do not want to read your birth plan, let alone read bullshit like, you know, how you want the water temperature to be and stuff. So forget it. You're not Madonna on tour. You're going to have a baby, and you want to get your really strong points together, you know. So what we do is we talk about mobility, we talk about pushing, and we talk about breastfeeding. And the other paradigm is no mobility, you have an epidural, that's gone. Pushing, we can do, and no breastfeeding, you're gonna do formula. We just do one, so it's that easy, right? A lot of them are all, she just wants an epidural, this and that. But then I explain mobility, and I explain physiology, and I explain how our ancestors birth, and how squatting works, and how when you feel pain from that contraction, that is your baby talking to you and telling you, move your body. I need to get out. You need to adjust things so I can make my head get out. I'm doing this, and you're not helping me, mom. So you're feeling it. So we need to move. And so we talk about motion, and we talk about how important that is. And I go, even if she wants an epidural, go as long as you can without one, because being vertical, moving certain ways, doing, you know, getting your hips wide, doing, you know, all these different things, you know, they're important. And for mom to be able to, you know, reach around back and move her legs backwards and do a flying cowgirl, because we need to brim her pelvis a little bit, or, you know, get her on the peanut ball a certain way, you know, get her hands and knees, get her on the back of the bed. That's all mobility. And they go, well, you know, you're going to go in and get an IV. I go, guess what? You can now negotiate this, because you can say, well, I would like to have, I'll be nicely hydrated, but I would like to have instead, an IV port. And so they get that instead, so that there's access to a vein in case they need to give her fluid or do whatever, or Pitocin or whatever needs to happen, or she crashes and her blood pressure drains out. There's so many different paradigms, right? And then their wives go, I didn't even know that. How do you know this? And then their wives call me and go, why does my husband know so much more than me? And
so you're starting with the man, right?
Always.
This is your gateway. That's
always.
really cool.
I call out for the men to get involved. And then
if you were to advise something to men who are, you know, from this culture, who are still under the impression that birth is something not for a man to be in, and it's there's nothing for them to do, and very important that the doctor knows better, and I am not in a place to oppose anything to them. What would you recommend? What would you have to say to them?
Grow a pair. No, I'm just kidding. It's man up. I mean, no. What I would have to say to them, I'd have to, look at the culture, look at the macho aspect of the man being the one who doesn't go to the birth and doesn't do that because I'm a man and you're a woman. There's a very big gender gap there that doesn't need to be there. And when you if men understood that, hey, look, if you change some of how this is going, it may change the outcome of how your kids grow up and what they do differently. And maybe, you and your partner will get closer because you're actually coming into something that's very intimate and very cool, because all those other people that are at the birth, they're not going home with her. You are. So you should be part of that, and you should be understanding what's going on. You should understand how to guide her, how to help her, and take your responsibility as a partner and support your partner. That being a partner in general, being in a relationship, if you're in a committed relationship, you should be committed on all aspects. That means if she's going through pregnancy, you're there. If she's going to have the baby, you're there, because that's your freaking baby, number one, and your partner, and you should be there supporting her. Also, you're committed if she gets sick to be there and help her and support her. You're committed if she's depressed or wanting to hurt herself to stop her or to help her. You know what I mean? And vice versa for her. Gender shouldn't mean you can't support or be there with your partner. It should actually push it a little harder, and it should have nothing to do with gender. It has to do with partner, because maybe it's two females. You know what I mean? Maybe it's should the other female in Russia not be there at the birth because she's the father counterpart? No, she's the partner. Whoever you're making this baby with that you loved enough to make a baby, or at least thought they were hot enough, right? Be there for them, because this is your child, this is your DNA, and you're, change it, make some changes in your community. Look at how it affects the rest of the world. Look at the countries that do that. Look at the Netherlands. Look at, there's a lot of places that, that are getting into that and really changing that all across Europe.
Partner concept is very, very different from husband and wife.
Yeah, shift the paradigm, because husband and wife, especially in countries that hold on to old traditions, are very much like, do the dishes, you put your apron on, have sex with me now, don't go here, here's money, that's the old school way, and it's not like that. It shouldn't be like that.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was so great. I mean, so informative.